Welcome to More Than Renovating, a Renovate and real estate podcast. Our founder, Belinda Smith, talks to industry experts to provide you with the knowledge and information you need to make renovating for love and profit your reality. Belinda will also chat to some of her Renovation Mastery members, who are just everyday people doing extraordinary things, following their passions in the renovation and property space. So, let's jump straight into the episode. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, I'm Belinda Smith from Renovate and Real Estate, and I'm very excited to have Kelly Bowen join me today on my podcast, More Than Renovating, because we all know that renovation and property investment is way, way more than the property and the house and fixing it up. There's many layers to the story. So I'm thrilled to be joined by Kelly. Kelly is from Lifestyle Finance Australia. She's not only an experienced businesswoman, but also someone who saw an opportunity and took decisive action purchasing Lifestyle Finance when she recognised the potential to create something bigger. She brings a unique blend of money wisdom, business mindset, and practical experience that speaks directly to renovators, investors, and wealth creators just like you guys listening in. In this episode, we're going to explore how mindset and money management shape success in both business and property. And from my business perspective, I've been involved with Kelly now for probably just under 12 months, I believe. But Lifestyle Finance Australia is a business that helps fund my wonderful students to come into the program and enables them to be able to start something they might not ordinarily be able to afford. So I'm really blessed to have met Kelly. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Belinda. What a beautiful introduction. I hope I can live up to that. And hello to all of the beautiful souls and listeners. I'm really excited to be here and to have this chat with you.
All right, just to start off, can you take us back to the moment you decided to buy into a business? And was Lifestyle Finance Australia, was that your first adventure?
No, it was not my first adventure. I have a string of hilarious failed businesses in the past, including one that I convinced my sister and her partner to invest $36,000 in with me because our psychic told us it was going to be the next big thing. So you can imagine how well that went. It was for a health product that promised to switch your fat switch off internally by making sure that your body was getting the nutrients it needs, because most people are malnourished, which is why their body stores fat, as opposed to, because it thinks it's starving, it keeps wanting to store energy and create more fat, as opposed to letting energy pass through the body. And we thought, wow, this is amazing. We're all into health. And yeah, it was an absolute disaster. But I call that my first business masterclass, where we learned about due diligence. We learned about doing product research. We learned about marketing. That year, we went to all of the Mind, Body, Spirit festivals, selling our product, like creating email lists. There was so much we learned from that for it to be such a beautiful disaster. And like any beautiful disaster, it births a level of resilience, tenacity, and a desire to do it better the next time, which is sort of how, I guess, fast forward, finance came along. And again, finance happened for me, not because it was a deliberate path. If you had told the, make a difference version of me that was burning to help people that they would end up with a career in finance, she probably would have laughed at you because she couldn't think of anything more boring than dealing with numbers all day. But my best friend at the time, she had a finance brokerage and she had built this really awesome coaching business off the back of it, because she was using that money to fuel the growth of her business. And it was at the stage where she was sort of ready to either sell it or hand it off. And she saw me struggling and she was like, you know what, babe, why don't you come and work for me? I will teach you finance. So if your coaching business doesn't work out, you'll have a really solid career and you can use the money you make there to follow the same path I did, right? Follow excellence, invest it into learning sales and marketing and grow your business. And I was so desperate at the time. I was like, sure, I'll take it. I've got to pay rent next month, and I don't know how I'm going to do that. So let's just, whatever it takes. And I've always been good at selling. I've always been good at people. I just hadn't found something that had enough structure to really apply those skills, where I learned some of the other more necessary skills to really run and scale a business. So anyway, happy little me goes into finance and loving making the money and starting to pour it into my coaching business. And I'm starting my marketing message that I really struggled with was starting to connect.
Yeah.
And my community was starting to grow. And at the same time, I was also getting these intuitive nudges from my soul saying, let go of your coaching business and go full-time finance. And I'm like, oh, that just sounds so counterintuitive, because at the time we were financing bikes, cars, and boats. And sure, it's cool to help people get their dream toy, but it doesn't have that like deeper sense of fulfillment where you really get to connect with somebody on more of an emotional level and see that change and growth in a person that I really love. And I was like, oh, I'd been doing the soul work and like listening to the guidance and trusting, not the meditate on your navel and hope it works out, but the following the intuitive nudges, because the more you do it, the stronger and clearer that connection gets. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, I'm gonna pitch my best friend, because I know that she wants to get out of the business. I'm gonna pitch her. I'm gonna say to her, so if I like I'm getting these nudges to go all in, and if I was to do that, would you be open to making me a partner in the business? And she said, you know what, give me 12 months, show me what you've got, and then we can talk about it. And we'll trial like a 50-50. And I was like, all
Yep.
right, watch this
Yep.
space. So
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
that
Watch me
time,
go.
watch me go. So
Yeah.
within this space, she had gone away to a coaching event, and she was talking to one of her friends who had scaled his business quite considerably within a 12-month period. He'd gone from being like a 7-figure revenue a year business to a 7-figure cash received, which is huge in the coaching space, because most of the time the way the money is received is most people will choose a payment plan. Well, they'll pay it off over 6 to 12 months. So it's a long time for the coach to recoup their money.
Yes.
And so the fact that he was doing 7 figures cash received was like, wow, how did you do that? And he was starting to tap into 7-figure months cash received. And she was
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? This level of growth is unheard of. And he's like, don't tell anyone, but I'm using finance. And she's like, you're what? And he's like, being that she's got the brokerage, she's like, finance. And he's like, yeah, we've been using this provider called like Latitude. And she's like, and again, like, we've had that lender on our panel for so long, but because it was a personal loan lender compared to the kind of lending we were doing, it was just, it wasn't competitive in the market space for bikes, cars, or boats. And so she comes home and says to me, like, hey, I've just found this out. Do you reckon that we could try putting some of my clients, instead of me putting them on payment plans, us getting them financed through Latitude with their personal loan product? And I was like, yeah. And it started working. And then the light bulb went off. I was like, oh, this is why my soul's told me to go full-time finance, because it's not about me having a career in finance. It's about me being here and building something for coaches and the education space and the online business space that doesn't exist, so they don't ever have to take that path that I did. Because I was like many people that go down the growth space or go into like even, learning about renovating. The amount of education you need before you can even do something to pull it off and pull it off well and make money is huge. So I was like, I don't ever want somebody to be in my situation where I've maxed out on my education and I've got nothing left to spend on the thing that I actually started off to do. And because when you finance a $10,000 program, it's like $50 a week. You finance a $20,000 program, it's like $100 a week, and that's affordable. And I was like, right. So then it became my mission to help people in the education space, the providers, get paid in full from day one. And as equally, maybe even more important, making the education available that changes lives affordable.
Yeah.
Because
You
until
really,
very recently, it hasn't been.
yeah, helping people to help people,
Yeah,
helping people to be able to expand their businesses and really make a difference across a number of
exactly.
fields. It's extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up with a finance brokerage. And then I eventually bought it off her in its entirety and grew it into back in 2018, and have grown it into what it is now.
And so when you took the reins and you were the person in charge, you owned the business, what did that
Mhm.
free up for you?
What did that free up for me? I was like, at first, I wasn't very free. I was the everything, wearing all of the
Everything.
hats, spinning all of the plates.
Yeah.
Um, what it, I don't so much know whether in that moment, it freed everything up because there was a huge stepping up and a leveling up of taking on that responsibility in a way that I hadn't felt before from my other previous experiences or cracks at business. Let's call it that. It wasn't, because now I've actually got a fully working business. Everything in it's working. Like, I'm taking over. I'm in it. So there was this whole other level of stepping into responsibility and accountability that I thrived on, that was also equally terrifying. And it definitely took up a lot more time at the beginning because I was so much more invested. I had skin in the game. Like it was this, the bridges were burnt. It was this or nothing.
Yeah,
and if it went bad, it wasn't a like, oh, you know, I've lost a little bit of money. There was a lot more at stake. And then the next part where I started getting a little bit more free time was after I made my first hire. And that in itself was a whole lesson of letting go. And then having to train somebody and put them through, like, because finance, you kind of have to do an apprenticeship before, like, it's not an apprenticeship becoming a broker, but literally the hard yards and how hard it is to get into the space is like an apprenticeship. Like, often your first couple of months, you don't get paid. You're learning, you're grinding, you're doing the long hours, you're making small commission, like kind of like enough just to get by until you know what you're doing, and then you get to do all the things. So it was really interesting, like doing that, like training him, and then that freed me up to grow the business and do the part that I really loved, which eventually brought me back into the coaching space, which was helping coaches integrate this into their business, helping them with their sales process, helping them with their own mindset around money. Because as much as, and here's the wild thing, people are so used to being paid a wage over a period of time. So you go to your job, you're on 100K, and you roughly get, I think it's about $6,500 a month. And you're totally okay to hold in your field that I make 100K a year, but I receive it at $6,500 a month over the next 12 months, because that's roughly what your take-home income on 100K is. But then when you say to somebody, what if I gave you all of that tomorrow? Which is what finance allows to happen. Because if you've got a coaching program and it's $10,000 and you have 10 come through on finance, that's 100K in your bank, potentially within a day, or at least within 5 days. How does your nervous system feel about that?
Yeah.
And a lot of people freak out about it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you can give it to me in dribs and drabs, but in like that quickly? Holy shit. Now, this is where it brings up all of the unconscious money stuff. How safe do you feel with it? What kind of money management systems do you have in place? Do you know what you're doing with your tax? Like, my God, if I could go back and tell young me at the beginning, like, one thing is, it's not sexy, but not just learn money about your unconscious beliefs and your money management systems, learn tax. Because that is the one that will come, tax.
Yeah. Has an impact on everything that we do.
It does. And at each income level, it's a different level of implications. And I still remember, like, going back 10 years ago when I was sitting in some of my very first personal development classes, everyone's like, yeah, I want to make 6 figures, or yes, I want to make $1 million. And I was like, it seems so far out. And I remember them talking to us about the more money you have, the more you need to learn to understand how to protect it and what to do with it. And I was like, oh, whatever, boring. I just want, like, I want the money. I'll deal with that later. Yeah. But if I could, like, give that young version of me anything, like that bit of advice, like, you know, when it's so far outside your scope of what you know, that it doesn't sink in until you start to get to that place. And I was like, oh, that later me now has that problem. And now I've got to learn real fast.
Yeah, that's it. That happens exactly when people say, I'm going to dip my toe into the water and renovate and flip a property. And so they'll just go ahead and do it. And then they're faced with the implications of capital gains tax, rather than being educated into the path of, at least meeting with an accountant before they purchase a property and exploring other options like trusts, etc., to change like the way in which the tax is dealt with.
Like, really understanding the lay of the land. I was speaking to a property developer friend, and they were telling me about this thing called air tax. I'm like, air tax?
Air tax?
What
Yeah.
what is air tax? And apparently air tax is if you build up a certain amount of stories, well, then you've got to pay the government air tax. And I'm like, since when did they own the air? But this is like, these are all the little things, like when you are looking at doing wealth creating strategies, all the things that you've got to learn about real fast. And you need to be in the rooms and you need to be in the conversations where people are talking about this. Otherwise, it sneaks up on you and you're like, and you can't plead ignorance.
I also think you need to be in a room where the conversations around money are very relaxed, are very, that money's just a number, are very, where people
Yes.
aren't so uptight about what is $1,000, what is $10,000, what is $50,000. Bigger
Yeah.
people. I was bigger people, bigger,
Because,
bigger thinking people.
yeah.
Yeah. And let's speak to that for a moment. What was your childhood like, and and do you believe that that had an impact on the way you think about business and money?
Absolutely. Great question because I feel that my childhood was a dichotomy of two very opposing realities. So my parents, a bit like you're like middle class, they
Yeah,
worked super hard. They didn't have a lot, but my God, did they work? And my God, did they give me a work ethic for sure.
me
And
too.
yeah, they really made do. One thing my dad was brilliant at, and I didn't realize this until later years, is that how much of a good wheeler and dealer he was. So I lived in a little country town, and he was like the prime car salesman for the town. Like he would outsell the Melbourne dealerships in our little country town.
Yeah.
And he would always get like taken off to like these race days and all kinds of cool stuff. And even his income, I think he like one year he was doing like he had one year with all of his sales was something like 150,000, and which was more. And his accountant was saying like this is more than what the local doctor gets paid. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize it at the time because we always experienced like we never had enough. And that was partly because of my dad's spending habits. He would always overspend, and that's been such a fun imprint to unlearn that often like that one was definitely fun to try and unlearn, but that particular like that pattern and always feeling like not having enough. And there was a time where we really didn't have enough and we were running out of food. Like this is when we were little
Yeah.
until dad had his accident payout. So there was various different experiences with money. And mum's a budgeter. Mum is very smart, very practical. She saves. Like when it comes to having like good money management and discipline, she's awesome. And my dad was the opposing opposite. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like the imprinting that I got. And then the other side of the coin was I was also a professional water skier when I was younger. And so that meant that I spent half the time living with my coach. And
Yeah.
she was incredible. She taught me how to fail and fail continuously as a pathway to success. Because when you're training in professional sport, you
Yeah.
crash, you wipe out, you get it wrong over and over until you get it right. And even when you're at the top of your game, you're still pushing forward. So when you're learning something new, you just get
Yeah.
used to being really uncomfortable until you get it right.
Yeah.
And so, but with that, I was on Australian teams, I was traveling around the world. So I also had, even though I didn't have a lot, and even for my water skiing tuition, my parents couldn't afford to have me there. I was kind of on part scholarship where I could be there because I was working. So I would literally work all day to in like return for my board and water skiing. And that eventually took me to a world title. So what it did teach me in terms of my experience with money was that there was a lot of undoing of my dad's spending habits. I came out of that being incredibly good at talking my way into things, at wheeling and dealing. And then also from the experience that I had with my skiing, because I was experiencing luxury and travel and things well beyond what my social status and current environment said I should. Like I remember one time I was getting on a plane to go to the Australasian Championships in China and I had $20 in my bank. And my thinking was, I was like 19. I had $20 in my bank account and I'm getting on this plane going to China. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that's okay. It's a third world country. China's really cheap. I'm not going to need more than $20. And if I do, I know this bank account lets me overdraw it by $20. So at worst, I've got $40. I'll be
40.
fine.
Rich.
Like,
Rich. Oh,
I thought, but the Australian team like covered for most things. But with that money, I still somehow managed to come home with some of like my fake Gucci handbags from China.
yeah.
And still, but even then, like the team took us out to these beautiful clubs in Singapore. So I was like, wow, there is this level of lifestyle and luxury. And I used to laugh. It's like I live a champagne lifestyle on a beer budget. It wasn't even a beer budget. It was probably like a goon budget, if I was being really honest.
Definitely a cheap goon
So
budget.
cheap
Yeah.
goon budget, like passion pop for $2 kind of thing. But that, so it
Yeah.
was really, it's been really interesting unpacking my own money journey
Yeah.
and my own money imprinting, but also having had this imprinting of like, what is healthy dreaming? What is like growth mindset in terms of moving towards something? What is available beyond my conditioning? So, and then also having to unpack and unravel my conditioning, because that also created some really funny stories to tell, like the one that my psychic said, this business is going to be the next best thing and we invest. So do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
been really interesting, the imprint on that. But I think the biggest thing, like to sort of like lock it into a couple of sentences, the imprint that my upbringing has had on my experience with money has had me be super resilient, really tenacious, um, having the courage to follow my passion and
Me
back
too.
myself,
Same,
and
same.
being yeah, and being okay with the fact that there's definitely been times where I've made a mess of it, and that's okay because that's part of the fun of it too.
Yeah, I agree. And being very conscious has made my childhood and my big dreams have just made me very consciously aware of the decisions that I'm making along the way, whether they're
Mm-hmm.
healthy, whether they're not so healthy, whether I'm hanging
Mm-hmm.
on to too much money and I'm acting in fear and withdrawing, whether I'm being too wild and spending too much. Like
Mm-hmm.
just becoming aware of expenses and where that, how I'm feeling in the moment and bringing that to
Mm-hmm.
back to, my life as a youngster, I've found is very
Mm-hmm.
healthy. It's served me
Yeah,
well.
yeah, 100%.
Kelly, what
Definitely
do you
makes a big
think?
difference.
Yeah, what do you think are the biggest mindset blocks that people have when it comes to money and wealth?
Money and wealth, the biggest mindset blocks. There's a couple of things for that for me. I know from my own journey, one of it's definitely been around worthiness
Wow. Yep.
and believing that I'm worthy of having more than enough
Yeah.
and feeling safe to have more than enough.
Yeah.
Because back in terms of like if we link it back into what we were talking about earlier with the coding of our childhood, the imprint that was left on my nervous system was, even though it's not safe, what felt familiar was always being in scarcity or just having enough or always like my back is against the wall or always having to chase something. So what would
Yeah.
happen for me, one of the biggest things that I've had to unpack, and a lot of people will relate to this, particularly if they're in the entrepreneurial space, my desire is to have wealth.
Yeah.
My nervous system and my being is like has had been a thermostat set to scarcity. So
Yeah.
while my nervous system was calibrated at that and I was feeling not enough, I would have lots of drive to go after the thing.
Yeah.
As soon as I got the thing, and I'd be like, oh, great, now I'm starting to make headway. I should be able to keep going. What would happen? I would have this momentary part of relief, and I'd be like, oh. And even though that I could see that something would need to happen and I would need to keep moving forward, my body wouldn't want to move forward. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's fine. I've got more than enough. Like until I didn't have enough. And I'd only want to start moving again when I got back, like my nervous system would pull me back to that place of feeling scarcity, not because it was safe, but because it was familiar. And that is what my nervous system and my body was equating to safety. So doing what actually was safe, creating, building wealth, and continuously moving forward was actually the thing that felt scary and unsafe to my being. So I had to rewire the whole system to go from what's familiar is not safe and what is unfamiliar isn't unsafe, and learning the unsafe to be familiar of having more than enough, which then brings to the next part, which is about capacity to receive.
Yes.
And a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space, or when they get into business because they want to make a difference, they have this deep desire of giving. And then what happens if you're deeply wired to give, you're too busy giving to actually allow what you want to come in, and you find it really hard to receive. So when you're like, I want to make $1 million. Let's just use that as an easy example. I want to make $1 million. Where is my $1 million? I've been doing, giving all of these things to make it happen, but there's so much outward energy. There's no space for the energy to come back in. And so these two parts for me have been the biggest thing. And I watch a lot of people go wrong here, and they get themselves into such a burnout hole that it then sets them back. So it'd be around one, the worthiness piece. You are worthy, safe, and deserving to have more than enough, and start to calibrate your nervous system with that. And you can do that by, when you start to get to these spaces of where you see the bigger numbers coming into your bank account, breathing and feeling it in your body and anchoring it down into your soles of your feet, into the core of the earth, that this is my new normal, before you spend lots of money. And you'll know you have this pattern is if you get lots of money hit your bank account, and the first thing you do is you start spending it, paying it out. And that could even be as simple as paying out your supply. Yeah, but it could be you're waiting for the money to come in. And particularly let's use renovating as an example. You're waiting for the money to come in, and you've got a big invoice coming in. You've got, let's just say, 30 grand. But of that 30 grand, you've got 25 grand that you've got to pay out to suppliers. What most people will do if they've got this what comes in goes out pattern is, rather than letting the 30,000 hit their bank account, taking a moment, letting it be there overnight, seeing the numbers in their bank statement, sitting with it until this feels normal in their body, and then making payments. They go, oh, right, the money's here. I've got the urgency to pay these people. It's money comes in, goes out straight away. There needs to be to start to expand this I feel safe with large sums of money, this moment of pause and this moment of breathing and this moment of normalization before letting it go out.
Love it. And the moment of those larger sums not feeling like they're large sums. Those larger sums just feeling the same as the smaller sums, as even larger sums, as money. It just comes in, comes out. It's part of business, part of life, without the hang-ups around how it all feels.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the other thing that I'd like to put in here about where people go wrong, and I can definitely put my hand up as having been the poster child for this at certain levels of my income expanding, is when you've come from not having enough to all of a sudden having excess, all of the things that you've been denying yourself, they want to be fed. Yep. And they'll be like, oh, I'm going to buy myself that nice handbag, or, oh, I'm going to go on that holiday, or, oh, I'm going to do that thing. And that's okay. And this is where, as your income increases, I did this when I first started hitting 10K months, and then I did it again at 20K, because for me, my number was I made it when I started doing 20K a month. I thought I was king shit. I was like, oh, look at me, I've got all this money, and this is so great. And it was because my nervous, that was I didn't know anybody at the time other than the people around me, but I didn't know anybody in my family space that had made 20K a month consistently. I was like, this was my made it number. And so when I got there, because 20K, most people can live quite comfortably on 20K a month. They can live a very comfortable, well-established life. And then that next level of my nervous system being so overstimulated and overcharged with that number, I did dumb shit with money. Just, oh, look at all this. You know what? I'm going to buy all of you dinner, and I'm going to buy all of the drinks at the bar. Look at me being king ding-a-ling with my $20,000 a month. Until that normalized.
Go Oprah.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
get a car and you get a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, and then that normalized, then 20K became normal. And I was like, oh, okay. And then then from there, so that was like the 10K and the 20K were two really big, like overstimulating points for my nervous system of all the things that I'd been denying myself to get there. It was like, oh, that beast is going to get fed. And my goodness, did it get fed? And did I feed other people's beasts as well? Then, then as the numbers started to grow, it became less of a big deal. Now 100K hits my bank account and I just expect it to do that because
Yeah.
that's normal. But
Yeah.
there is a level, like there is a rite of passage in that, and it's knowing that that is going to happen and giving yourself, like rather than doing what I did and just blow everything, you're better off giving yourself a budget that each time you hit a milestone, you get a play budget, because that beast still needs to get fed, but so that you don't blow yourself out, give yourself a
Yes.
budget for that.
Yeah. And just have
Yeah.
like a handle on where it's all at, and also allow some contingency for months inside a business that don't do so well. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to start to say, okay, I'm at this point in this month, or for my renovators, I've just made 100K on this property. So my next one will make 100K and the next one pulls in at 57. And you think, oh,
Yeah.
shock. So, I mean, you can get into the habit of just expecting.
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest traps entrepreneurs will fall into when they start making more money, is that, and it's a lie, and it will leave you disappointed,
Yeah.
and it will leave you dry every time, which is every month is going to be better than the last once things
Yeah.
start to pick up. Because it is
Yeah.
for a little while and then it's not. And if you keep increasing your expenses to match the income, my God, does that burn? You only need to learn that lesson once and you
Yeah.
won't do it again. But one thing that I'm constantly checking, like regularly, is as like where like trying to minimize my baseline expenses for that exact purpose that you're talking about. So when the money comes in, of course there's good months and then you can spend and invest in some and projects, but you also need to be able to work off, and this is my rule of thumb, I always work my spending off what my bad months are with the
Yes.
maximum level of consistent costs. And if I can sustain that, great. But
Yeah.
if my bad months don't cover my minimum expenses, things need to change.
Yeah. And urgently. Yeah.
Very urgently. And the other thing I recently did that was actually quite liberating was I noticed something was debiting my credit card that shouldn't have been, and they wouldn't stop the transactions. So I just canceled the credit card and I was like, I want to see what else is coming off this that shouldn't be coming off this. And it was the best exercise because, again, it was just another great way to just trim off a heap of stuff that was unnecessary. Sure, a
Yeah.
few extra calls to get the new credit card connected, but you'd be
Yeah.
surprised at some of the things you're paying for that you thought you weren't,
Yeah.
particularly if you've got lots of transactions coming out of a card.
And particularly if you're busy running a business and you think, oh, that's small stuff, I'll look at that next month or the month after, and yet those transactions continue. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What role do mentors or networks or surrounding yourself with the right people play in shaping financial success, in particular your financial success?
Oh, I hand on heart would not be where I am without that.
Me too.
No way. Like it is one key thing. Like again, when I'm thinking about essential expenses, that is one of them.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
there was something that I learned like really early on back in my competitive skiing days is you don't want to be the best person on the water. You always want to be training with somebody who's better than you because they will lift you and they will make you rise. And when you're stuck with something that they've already mastered, they will show you the pathway. It's no different in business. Like when I go to my business mentors or some of my other friends in business that are just doing like same level, if not better, when we share our problem, it's like, oh, yeah, I solved that last month. It sucks, but try blah, blah, blah. And it's not, it just normalizes the path in which you're walking on. Because if you haven't walked it before, how do you know what is normal and what's not normal? Like one of the things that business owners go through is depending upon the life stage of their business, they're going to have very specific yet very different business problems that are also very normal business problems. So
Yes.
like, for example, the beginning of business, cash flow is always an issue. You're
Yeah.
cash poor and you're time poor. So you got to get your hustle on. You got to know how to wheel and deal and make deals and connect with people and community like that. They are what get you going. They are what give you your leg up. I wouldn't have, again, if my best friend hadn't have given me an opportunity, my networks, my connection, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely about one, being a people person. Then once your business gets going, and now you become you've got some cash capital, but you're time poor because you need to hire someone. Then you hire someone, and now you go back into cash flow issues because you've got somebody where you're offloading, and yet they're new, and that's a whole other. It's like you've got a toddler. So you can also be, again, time poor because you're training somebody, and cash poor because the business is growing, but now you're paying someone till it gets to a point, and then you get a little bit of time and money freedom. And then again, if you want to go next level or invest in other projects, if you're doing something, you do it again. But if you're investing in a project, like, for example, putting back-end software and systems into your business, that's not a direct return on investment. So you've got to sort of build the contingency that this is going to cost you money before it saves you time to then make you money. So there's all these little things that, unless you're with people that are playing a bigger game in business than you and that have walked the path in your shoes, they're not going to be able to tell you that problem's normal or that problem needs attention, or even help you guide through that so that you experience it a lot smoother, as opposed to, I know we were talking about this earlier, people getting excited about doing their first reno, saving up all of their money, doing their first reno, but because they've got no guidance, no experience, they get rolled by their carpenter, they get done on upsells for the finishings, and then all of a sudden they've completely blown their budget and they lose money. So this is where, like, it always pays to spend a little bit more to get the right support and education, and somebody lay the path out for you to build your success as you start to learn your own experience. And one of the best things I was ever told when I first started in personal development, and this is by one of my mentors, Remy Pearson, was stand on the shoulders of giants so that you can do what they did in half the amount of time.
Yeah, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. And that comes at a little bit of a cost. It just does. That's just the way it works.
Yeah. And again, like, you're a little bit of a cost to get 30 years of experience. And experience and wisdom comes from making bad decisions and spending lots of money.
And doing the hustle and developing a network and developing all of the systems and developing all of the contacts to make somebody else's journey much, much easier. Yeah, and that's what it's about. That's what the coaching industry is all about.
Isn't it? And to have access to somebody's platform that they have spent years building and spilled. They've just spilled it all over the place. Yeah. But the fact that they've spent years building the platform, the amount of money and hours they've invested in it to be able to gain access for you to fast track what you're doing, that's invaluable. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's why people make such fast progress if they jump in and they do the learning and they take the action. It's phenomenal to watch. So rewarding. So rewarding to watch. Okay, Kelly, so if you were to give one piece of advice to somebody who is listening today, that you just, a piece of wisdom that you'd like to pass on to them about money, finance, mindset, creating wealth, what would that be?
It's a good question. I'm going to go back to my favorite saying, and I'm going to quote Tony Robbins, like the godfather of personal development. And he said, it's never a question of resources. It's always a question of resourcefulness.
Oh, that's great.
And the further down the path I've gone, the more I realize just how powerful that statement is. And that, for me, like, that's how I ended up in finance, or really saw the potential with what it is that we do and how we help people get funded for education. And it's because a lot of people don't have thousands of dollars lying around, but they might have a couple of $100 a week, or they might have $500 a month. And with that, there's not a lot you can do with that just on its own. But if we look at that and, we're being resourceful with our thinking, and we ask, like, how can we multiply this? The fastest way to multiply it is go to the bank, and you can get a personal loan. $500 a month is probably going to get you $25,000. Now you've got something to invest in online business, or now you've got something to invest in education. And the amount of entrepreneurs that have started a business that way, it's huge. Like, if you ask anybody about their zero to hero story, there is usually always a mum's credit card involved or some kind of finance or something where they've just decided to back themselves and go all in. Like the amount of times that I've leaned back on finance, because why would I use my money when I can use somebody else's money and I can tax deduct the interest? It ends up being a break for me. Like it just makes better sense. And if it goes belly up, it's on the bank. It's not on me. So this is not that I'm not
I
that
love
I'm
OPM, other people's money, they
other
call it.
people's money. And it is,
Other
it's how
people's
the
money.
wealthy, it's how the wealthy get rich. And if I
Yeah.
could give you like one thing to like, if you're like, yeah, but that's great. Like, how do you learn to think like that? So there's two things I recommend. One is a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. This is a book that will change your life if you let it. You can even listen, I'm pretty sure like you can listen to the audio version on Spotify, or I'm pretty sure there's even one on YouTube. You can even like speed listen to it. But the way that it talks about shifting you out of fixed thinking, like it's very black and white to how to think in this expanded way of thinking, which ironically is what my coach drilled into me. Like how do you still feel successful when you're continuously failing to become the best at something?
Yes.
And that book will change your life. And then the other thing, it's an NLP model. So NLP is neuro linguistic programming, studying how words impact the brain and influence behavior.
Yeah.
And so this particular model, it's called the hierarchy of ideas. Again, look it up on YouTube. There are so many videos about it. But essentially, what it does is teach you to think all of the different ways around a problem. So if you're sitting here saying, I'm struggling and I'm broke, but I want to invest in property. How do I, like, what are all of the different ways that I can think about this? And what the hierarchy of idea does, it teaches you how to think 13 different ways around the problem. 13 different ways of expanding your thinking to big picture, 13 different ways of going down into the specifics, and 13 ways of thinking laterally around the problem about how you can do this one thing. And I think between the coding that I experienced as a kid, which is essentially what you'll get out of mindset,
Yeah.
and teaching me how to think from a growth perspective, coupled with this understanding of how to think resourcefully around a problem to get to the desired outcome. And that could be like collaborating with people, that could be swapping a service for a product. Like there are all these different ways that you can go from where you are to where you want to be. It's just how creative do you want to get with your thinking, and these two things will really help you do that.
Oh, I love all of that. There's so many instances where people are faced with, well, in my genre, it's can I renovate? No, I don't have the funds because the bank said I can't borrow enough. And they would shut the whole idea down. So many people go, oh, that's me then. I'm done. That's not for me.
Yeah.
And I think be resourceful. There are multitudes of ways of getting enough money to start, to learn, to collaborate with other people. There are multitudes of
Mm-hmm.
solutions to that one issue. So it's just interesting that when people do the work and they're prepared to open their hearts and minds to learning more and being more and
Mm-hmm.
doing more, that things start to fall in everyone's path. It's just it's a beautiful thing to watch as a coach when people really get it
Yeah.
and they just
And it's
yeah they just keep
yeah,
striving forward. It's gorgeous. It's great.
absolutely. And that's our job as coaches, to help them expand this pathway of thinking. Like that hierarchy of ideas, the way the model works is essentially it sort of like starts out saying a fish can think, or a fish or a dog, sorry, a fish can think something like one level around its current problem. A cat thinks three, a dog can think four different moves beyond its current problem to try and solve its problem.
Yeah.
A dolphin a dolphin can think something like 11, and we can think 13 different ways around a problem. So it
Yeah.
actually expands how you think. But most people, like you said, they get no and they're like, I'm done.
I'm
So,
done.
and for
That's it.
me,
Yeah.
and it's not, unless we're talking about consent, then
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
If
That's
we're
true.
talking to
That's a
anything,
different issue.
anything outside in consent, no is no. But anything
Yeah.
outside of consent, a no
Yeah.
is okay. I just haven't put it in front of you in a way you can say yes to yet. And my
Yeah.
favorite thing is like when we're negotiating with credit analysts. Now think about credit analysts. These are button pushers that are working off a checklist. Does it fit in my checklist or does it not? Like that is literally the decision of yes and no.
Yeah.
Like I will go to them and I will ask all of these different ways to kind of like move them around. Like my favorite question is, okay, so for this to be a yes, what needs to happen?
Yeah.
And then they'll tell me and they'll go, oh, look, it can't be. And I'm like, okay, I totally hear where you're at. Let's just pretend for a moment we could make it a yes. And if we were to make it a yes, what would need to happen? And it's just all of these different, such a wheeler and dealer.
The
But
art
this is,
of
again, like
negotiation.
the art
Yeah,
of negotiating. And this is also NLP and NLP language models,
yeah,
knowing how to move around somebody's gatekeepers, that
yeah,
their critical faculty, like that part that's making decisions, knowing how to move around them to open that up. Like another great book for this is How to Win Friends and Influence People. That will
yeah,
also totally change your relationship with people. So
yeah,
all of these little things, and because I'm a human behavior geek, so I love getting into all of these things. And I'm not even as good as I could be with it, but these are just the little pieces. Like once you start to understand some of these language patterns and start to understand what drives somebody to get, people make decisions based on emotion.
yeah,
And rarely will you have somebody make a decision based on fact. A research person will, but if you understand the person in front of you, you'll understand how to elicit the emotion that you need to get the result that you want, and also put together the logical steps that they can see how it's going to benefit them. And if you can do that, if you can tap into their emotion and you can show them, because all people care about is what's in it for me, if you can show them what's in it for them, then all of a
yeah.
sudden what you're offering looks so much more attractive.
Fantastic. I should get you talking about some real estate negotiations or negotiating with real estate agents. It's the same game. It's just
Same
working at
game.
the owner's same game. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people always think, what is in it for me, what's in it for me, and to make sure that they're catered for and to work around that best you can to get where you want to be is pretty important.
Yeah, exactly. I always start a conversation, particularly if it's a challenging conversation, always, what is their current point of view? What do they want? Okay, how do we give that to them first? And how do we layer in what we need met within that?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Finally, what's the one practical shift in money mindset that listeners could apply today that would change the way they think about their wealth journey?
Well, beyond what we've discussed, one practical thing,
A shift.
a shift. Oh,
I've got a
one
cracker.
practical
Can I
shift. Oh, yeah,
yeah.
please do. I've got one, and then
Oh,
I want to hear yours though.
I think
No,
if
please
people
share.
really, people can't get there in their minds, don't worry about it. Just take the incremental action. Just take the action. And I think the belief and things, our path opens for us when when we start taking those steps in a forward direction, even if we don't feel ready, even if we don't feel completely knowledgeable. I think that really matters. That just opens up. I don't know what it opens up energetically. Kelly, you tell me. Oh, it just opens up the pathway.
Yeah,
It's amazing, you go,
it
all these
does.
things are happening for me and to me, and I've wanted this for years and years and years, but now it's all in front of me, and this just feels right. These mentors feel right, this person feels right to work with, this situation feels right. But it's when you start kind of taking that action forward and just step by step nudging your own way. That's my take on that.
Yeah, I love it. And you nailed it. Like, what does it create? It creates momentum. That one next step, it creates momentum. And mine would be to back on with that. If
Yeah,
somebody is feeling like they don't have enough or that they don't have the money to get into it, the first thing that they need to do is change their state, and they need to start feeling abundant in what's around them. And one of my favorite games to play
yeah,
is that money is just energy. And if you were
yeah,
to look around your room right now, everything that you see with your eye was is only there because it was once money.
yeah,
Money was the energy that was exchanged for you to have what's sitting in front of you. So right now, my computer, money bought the computer.
yeah,
Money bought the table that the computer's on. Money bought the chair I was sitting on. Money bought my beautiful chai. Money bought my phone. So when I go,
mm,
okay, if I was to reverse engineer, I've got all of these things and stuff. If I was to
mm.
reverse engineer and tap into the abundance that put that there in front of me, to reverse engineer where that came from, money, now I'm starting like, wow, there is so much money around me. And then
All
even if
around
you go
us.
bigger with the house, I'm sitting in like this, I'm sitting in hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. Like I am sitting in the end result of the exchange of that. So if I work it back, I'm like, wow, I'm already just where I'm sitting and breathing is abundant. And if I want to go even further back, my lifestyle, the poor lifestyle for most people is still greater than what it was for kings and queens a couple of hundred years ago, because
I agree.
we've got plumbing, we've got heating water. Like they wouldn't have been able to flick a light on or go have a hot shower. It was
Yeah,
candlelight and poured baths. So when we start, like when we bring a little bit of reflective perspective and then reverse engineer all of the things that are around us back into what they originally were with money, we're swimming in abundance. It's just our perspective on it.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kelly. If anybody wants to
My
reach out
pleasure.
to Kelly directly, they can find her at Lifestyle Finance Co. Do you want to give your website?
Yeah, you've done a beautiful job. lifestylefinanceco.com. And you'll find me there over, yeah, lifestylefinanceco.com. Or if you just search Lifestyle Finance Kelly, I would probably be the first thing that pops up.
Specializing in, I call them microloans. Is that the right term?
So we specialize in personal loans for education.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Us
My
little
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
Right?
no.
We're such hustlers.
Well, that's the truth, like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'll call myself a hustler, 100%. But it sounds so aggressive and masculine. It's not really. Just
It does.
I'll always go another layer. I can always find another chunk of energy from somewhere. Always.
Absolutely. It's the level of resilience. And when I say hustler, it's not like, I don't think hustler like, I'm going to wheel and deal and do something dodgy. What I mean about it is it's more like an opportunity creator, seizer of the moment, resilience to see something come to life. And also, though, I feel both of us, one of the things that's like really important, if I look what I understand about your journey, and I know for mine, it's been very collaborative. It hasn't been on our own, and we've used our connections and networks, and we've brought everybody with us. It wasn't we succeed and others don't. It was been very collaborative, that if you are in my sphere, you will also succeed too.
I couldn't do it without my team, and I love it when my team say things like, "We've helped create our business." I just love that so much. Yeah,
me too.
beautiful. Thanks so much, Kelly.
Amazing. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.